Going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great evening. I have a treat for you guys tonight. Mr. Sterling Bennett from 49er Access. He's not holding it down at the station tonight. I figured I'd steal him and talk some 49ers draft fallout and some other off-season stuff. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Again, it feels like every time we link up, there's always a process
There's
of
always
getting this thing
technical issue.
started and
Yeah.
getting it a little late, but we're here, ready to go. Niners had 9 draft picks. I don't love all of them. I'm sure we'll get into it, and I'm really
Oh
excited to be here.
yeah. It's funny. The ones that well, how about this? Let's go. What's your without talking about any of them? What was your overall grade from the draft? Mine was a B minus. What was yours?
I think I would give it a C plus at the moment, and then of course, we'll get into everything throughout the entire show. But I think there really is potential. This could be a B plus draft for them. But right now, not seeing any of the players, just knowing what they did in college, what their projected role is going to be in the NFL this year, I would say it's a C plus.
There's a lot. It was a lot of questionable things that happened early on in the draft that a lot of people are talking about. Mainly the
It's a kicker.
drafting.
Why taking the kicker?
I actually had no issue with it whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
I was really excited about it. I told my brother, I was like, we got the best kicker in the draft. And I told him, and then I came back and I go, and 49er fans hate it. Everybody's melting. Dude, like Twitter was on a meltdown mode. It was ridiculous. People are arguing with each other. I'm like, guys, it's April. We don't start the season till September. If you're gonna melt down during the season, not
Right.
during because the draft is so you don't know for like 2 years what guys are going to be 2-3 years sometimes. So
Yeah.
everybody's saying that this team had a great draft and this team had a garbage draft, and the Niners are you know, still behind they were behind the Seahawks and the Eagles. We don't know that. Nobody knows. Um, so I'm gonna go through most of the interesting picks. I printed it out here. So the first one, of course, was safety Jair Brown, Penn State, number 87 overall. Uh, to me, from listening to a lot of the post-draft podcasts like Locked On 49ers, other people that do stuff on YouTube, he has a very similar game to Talanoa Hufanga, essentially, maybe just not as good right now. And he has a lot of the same weaknesses, which makes me have a question of why would they draft two guys that have the same game when essentially you need a guy who's like a center fielder
Right.
playing the other safety position and not two, box safeties. But what was your take on the draft pick? 10 interceptions in 2 years is kind of a big deal. So he is a turnover machine. But from a lot of the people that have talked and reviewed his film, there's definitely some red flags. What was your take on the pick?
Well, let's take it to the pre-draft process. And I looked at all the safeties and I said, okay, what does San Francisco need? If you're going to have Talanoa Hufanga and you're going to have Deshaun Gibson on a 1-year deal, likely out the door after this year, I would assume you are going to want a really good coverage safety who can stop any play over the top or can limit big plays against, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Miami. You're going to want someone that can aid Hufanga in defending against vertical offenses. And I thought Daniel Scott from California was that guy. He's not going to be a starting caliber safety, maybe ever, but at least for this year, I thought he was the better pick in case Gibson went down. You had someone that was really good in pass coverage, that was just okay against the run. But San Francisco, and this was my train of thought, I slept on it and I realized that this was likely what San Francisco did. They got there at, was it 86, sitting there at 86, going, okay, we know there's a handful of teams in front of us that need a safety. Now, there aren't many left, and we believe that Jair Brown is the only safety on the board that has elite traits. And he really does. He's great in the box, line of scrimmage monster. He wants to tackle, he wants to hit somebody. He plays fast. Like you talk about swarm, he's going to swarm towards the ball. He's a playmaking, has amazing ball skills, 10 picks. That's the most, I believe, of any safety over the past 3 seasons in college football.
That's
Like
insane.
he is one of the best ball skill safeties. And at that point, They trade up to 87 with Minnesota. They take Jair Brown. My first thought was, yeah, but he's not great in pass coverage. Yeah, he can't play the nickel. Like he's not a Jimmy Ward replacement.
Right.
And let's be honest here. He's likely not going to start this year at all. Like this
Nope.
year, it's going to be Gibson and Ufunga. And my one concern this year, because I do think Jair Brown will have his place, he'll have his time, he will be given the opportunity to make a splash this season with San Francisco. Whether it's playing in the box, he's a 200-pound safety that basically should be a linebacker, plays like a linebacker, really. But my only concern is that if Deshaun Gibson goes down, there's not much depth behind him, and you have two guys who like to take big risks, and sometimes the reward is there and you're happy and you're clapping. It's an interception or a big fumble. And other times it's a big broken play, and he can't be a nickel. He's a little slower. So I do have questions, but I like this pick a lot simply because he has elite traits, and it's very hard to find somebody in the third round in a safety class that wasn't very deep whatsoever that has elite traits, and they got the last one on the board. And while his skill set may not help them this year, you give him 1, 2, 3 years, 1 year under Gibson, a really good covered safety. Like this kid can really learn. He plays fast, a little slow, but he plays fast. Like I really do like this pick because I do think he can be in a year or two a starting safety next to Ufunga. But right now, it's got to be Gibson and Ufunga and Brown filling in here or there.
With me, I think a lot of people are underestimating the effect that our defensive coordinator is going to have, hopefully, on this secondary in general, because he's a secondary guy. Mr. His name is escaping me, Steve Wilks, and we have to. I think as 49er fans, maybe, and people that even grade the Niners draft. I was listening to Crocker and Peacock, and they were talking about it, and a lot of Crocker's not negative, but just his critique says he's slow, and like he needs to take really good angles, or when you go against like elite level speed guys, he's really going to kind of be showing up. So hopefully with coaching and not having the pressure to start,
right,
he could be that guy. Now, if he gets in here this year and they see that he ain't it, there's nothing stopping them from drafting a safety next year in the second round. You know what I mean? Like I don't think this is an end all be all selection. I think they want to address a need this year. And if it sticks, great. I hope it does. Cause you have to build your roster out through the draft in order to keep a nucleus together. So these kind of picks make sense. It's just, it is a little frightening to think that you got essentially two safeties that play the exact same game, and both of them have an issue with, bad angles and a lack of top end speed on plays where they need to play center field. It's just not there. So maybe he's able to overcome those. Maybe he plays faster with the 49ers than he did in college and on tape. But yeah, I like the pick too, because I thought safety was a huge need coming into this season, considering that Gibson's really playing a 1-year deal, and then he's pretty much, he's done. He came back. A lot of the reason he came back was to play with Talanoa Hufanga. So hopefully Brown is the type of guy that likes to learn and sit back and learn get under the learning tree of a player that's been in the league a while and has a lot of knowledge. That's the best way to become, good, because the classroom part of it is just as important as on field. So hopefully he's that guy. That's all you can ask for, really. And I'm sure, like I said, with Wilks being a former defensive or being a guy that really likes to his expertise is defensive backs, I think it'll help. Because if they just had a normal defense coordinator coming in there who just is D'Amico Ryans to me was just an overall great defense coordinator. He didn't really have one thing that he liked over others. Maybe linebacker, maybe his knowledge of the linebacking part of it was over maybe other parts of his coaching knowledge. But with Wilks, DBs is kind of his thing. So hopefully that can pay off, and it could be something that he can take along with whatever skills he has and turn into a solid, who knows, maybe he is the answer. But yeah, it was a questionable pick. I'm still kind of weird on it. Just like I said, it's similar play style, but we don't know. We really don't know. It's 2 to 3 years, right? Until you find out about a draft class. I just think it's funny that these analysts and all these people are calling like this team has the best draft and the Niners are behind and this and that. And it's just like we don't even know. Nobody's played, you know? So
Right. It's like the Cardinals don't have a quarterback, the Rams don't have a defense, and yeah, Philadelphia had a really good draft on paper, but you really just never know what a player is going to be. And if anyone has any concerns about Jair Brown, let me kind of temper those right now because yes, he has quote unquote negative things about him that can get a lot better. But I do think when push comes to shove, the San Francisco 49ers got a playmaker on defense.
mhm.
And like, if I'm Steve Wilkes, like, you want him on the field
Yep.
because you know he can help your defense get the ball back. And whether it's Trey Lance or Sam Darnold or Brandon Davis or Brock Purdy, you want Kyle Shanahan's offense to have every opportunity to score. Like, I would not be surprised if this year we see a three safety formation of
I was
Gibson,
just gonna
Ufunga,
ask.
and Brown,
Yep.
and like that's a lot of playmaking ability on defense. And what was the biggest knack in the secondary in 2019? They don't get turnovers, and it's been kind of a consistent thing over time. Now, last year, a lot different. In San Francisco, I think wants to keep that momentum moving in that direction of, hey, we
Right.
can play great offense.
They're
We
and
can
it's
score a
funny,
lot
they
of
didn't have the
points.
pass rush last year. Their pass rush, other than Nick Bosa, was
Right.
kinda average.
Right.
So the fact that their secondary played as well as they did, if the pass rush comes alive this year, and that I think that'll help him too if he's playing with a defensive
Right.
line that can force errant throws because I don't care what secondary you have or what safety you have. If a quarterback has ages to throw, as we've
Yeah.
seen by guys like Mahomes and Allen or Josh Allen, they're going to beat your defense. You
Yeah.
can't cover for 7, 10 seconds. It's just not possible. So I think he'll be okay. But I understand the concern, and it is kind of a worry. I think about it. I'm like, man, that would suck if him and Tafanga both had to play, and then they played a team that has some top end speed on the outside. Oi, and they get him in some one on one situations where he has to cover, or at least not one on one, but where they isolate him where he has to
Right.
cover like a deep cross or a corner route or something. But that's so many months from now. So
Right.
he's got a lot of coaching he's
Right.
going to take in. He's got to make it to the season and stay healthy. I think because we all try to get content and put out content, we're all trying to maybe overanalyze stuff way too much when it's not really that much. It's pretty black and white. Let's go to the next pick at 99 overall. Jake
The
Moody,
kicker.
best kicker in the draft. I was hyped. I was like, no way. They actually picked him. That's exactly what my response was. No way. Because like I heard the pick, and then I'm like, wait, that's the guy. Like that everybody's been losing, peeing in their pajamas on for months
Right.
on end. And then all of a sudden I go to Twitter and everybody's pissed. Everybody
Yeah.
was so mad. And they're like, how do you do that in the third round? And I'm like, well, it
Yeah.
technically was a fourth round pick because we have all these compensatory picks. So technically the Niners were picking in the fourth round. So if you go with it with that mindset, and then you see what the Patriots ended up doing not too far
Right.
down the road, they kind of had to make that pick. Well, that's my opinion. I don't know
Yeah.
what you thought about it.
Yeah, I think when I first saw it, you put position next to value, and you say, okay, like these two things don't add up. Like a kicker in the third round, it was the third highest position for a kicker since 2005. Or Robert Aguayo in the second round, and Mike Nugent, I believe, in the fourth round, or excuse me, third round, just a little higher. And when you hear that, your first instant reaction is, well, we need a tackle and we need a tight end still. So who's the odd man out? Which position is not going to be valued? And we obviously found out, but I didn't love it initially. And I was like, oh, a kicker, like in the third round, like you have to hit on these third round picks, knowing that you didn't have a first rounder, you didn't have a second rounder. Like these picks have to hit and help you win this year.
Yep.
Then I slept on it and I said, okay, said you have Zane Gonzalez, who whatever, he's fine. He was just there in case they didn't get their guy in the draft.
Exactly.
And so they picked Jake Moody, who again, the best college kicker. He's like top two in touchbacks. He's gonna help your special teams. He can kick 50 plus yards consistently. And you go, okay, If this guy is hitting game-winning field goals come playoff time, it's worth it because
Yep.
he's helping you win. And if he's not missing, chip shots, and Robbie Gould was really good for a long time here. It's not a shot at him whatsoever, but you can upgrade from a really good kicker in Robbie Gould to a great kicker potentially in Jake Moody. My one, trepidation is he has to be one of the best kickers in the NFL in his tenure in San Francisco. Because if
Yeah,
he's
like
not,
yeah, especially
I
with a
can point
playoff team.
right, and I can point to Justin Tucker as an undrafted free agent, Robbie Gould, undrafted free agent, saying you took a kicker in the third round when you could have had maybe a better tight end or improved the right tackle depth, or heck, even got Isaiah McGuire from Missouri to help your edge. Now, again, those guys can be whoever they are in the NFL. Moody could be the best player in the entire draft for all we know. But this pick, Jake Moody, he has to hit. I
Yep.
think he will. I think he's a good player. Third round's a little too rich for me. Fourth round's a little too rich for me. But if he hits and he's hitting game-winning field goals in Philadelphia against Kansas City come Super Bowl, whatever number it might be, it's worth it. And you wash your hands and go, thank God they picked that kid in the third round.
Yeah, it could go either two ways. And the thing, I think the one advantage hopefully he has is he played in Michigan, which is, Northeast where I live. It's pretty crappy that in the most of the, late fall, early winter. So, I mean, he's got that part where he kicked in some pretty hellacious weather. And for the most part, when he's kicking in Santa Clara, the conditions are not going to be too bad. It's when he goes on the road, like you said, to the Phillies and maybe some of these East Coast teams. I wasn't surprised, but I was because everybody wanted him in all their mock drafts. And then when people actually pick a kicker and it's not in the fifth round, it's just an
Right.
automatic reach, no matter what. And so to me, I look at it as this: if the Niners are what they were at the end of last year and they score a lot of points, maybe he can be eased in to be not the guy that has to win, games where the Niners only, win 13-10 or something. I mean, with Brock Purdy, they were consistently scoring 35 plus points. So to him, it would be just he's got to hit his extra points and be done with it. And I think people don't realize how important he's going to be on kickoffs because we had one of the worst. Oh my God. I love Robbie Gould to death, but between him and freaking our punter who can't kick because his leg gets tired and they can't, I mean, never a touchback, never into the end zone. It was always at like the 5-8 yard line and they get a running start and like the coverage team's not even down there. I just get so pissed off. I'm like, teams are consistently getting to like the 38, 39 yard line on consistent basis because the kicker has no legs. So that part is the part that is important to me. If he's consistently booming some kickoffs and making it difficult for teams to get past maybe like say the 20 yard line, that's fine for me. Because we had serious issues with that over the last many years. Where, like I said, Robbie Gould misses kicks sometimes that you don't think he should miss, like extra points or just like errant kicks that don't make any sense. And then all of a sudden he's in the playoffs and he's nails. So yeah, you're right. He needs to make some big time kicks this year. And I think if he does, and he's in that kind of because Michigan, I mean, they're a decent college program. They're not like a also Rans or like a Division II school. So there's some pressure there to make kicks, but that's going to be way up here in the NFL. So
Well, take it
I
even
like,
further. Like you could take it even further than that. The fact that he will hopefully be doing kickoffs. One, yes, touchbacks are great, and that will help special teams. It will help where your defense starts on the field against the opposing offense.
right.
But on top of that, my mind goes, which teams have had the best special teams plays against us? Seattle. You love beating them. Like they're always great on special teams, kick returns. Like it just seems like something always happens. But from a more broader standpoint, we had a lot of penalties on kick returns last year, hitting guys late out of bounds. Like that's not going to exist anymore if the ball is in the back of the end zone. And so not only does it help, yes, touchbacks, 25-yard line, but it also helps the fact that you're not going to open the door for potential, after the whistle penalties on Tarvarius Moore, who now isn't here anymore. But you're essentially helping your special teams unit in multiple ways, not just one, which again helps your defense, which you hopefully helps your offense. It kind of all comes full circle. even though it's a kicker in round 3, like Jake Moody could have a huge impact on this team this year.
I was doing a stream about an hour ago or so with Ted Talks Ball,
Yeah.
awesome guy, and he's like, Aaron, because we have our Wednesday show, First and Ted. He goes, dude, Aaron, what if Zane Gonzalez beats him out and the Niners have to trade him and they get nothing for him? I was like, that would suck really
Yeah.
bad, and I hope that doesn't happen. Because Zane Gonzalez has no pressure.
Right.
He's not expected to be on this team come September. So all the pressure's on the kid, and hopefully he doesn't shrink under it. Me, I just hope he just comes in and just like friggin' crushes 60-yard field goals to win a game.
Right.
Think
Right.
about that. Be the kid. You can come in out of college. Niners have a game they have to have for the division or something late in the season in Seattle, and he gets the freaking 62, 63-yard field goal to win it. How quickly this fan base will be in love with him and be like, so glad the 49ers made that pick in the late third round, technically fourth round, because it was a compensatory pick. That's all it's going to take. He's going to have to do something magnificent or two or three times, and all of a sudden everybody will forget about it. But you're right. If he comes out and he's freaking doinking extra points and having some issues on kickoffs where he's uh kicking it out of the not even out of the end zone, but like kicking it out of bounds on kickoffs or something, yeah, we're gonna have some problems. So, but like I said, long time to September. Let's not rush the summer because I like this time of year, and we'll worry about that in about 4 months, maybe 3 months, 4 months. But
Well, again, keep going further down the rabbit hole here. Jake Moody and his, what seems like boot of a leg, 60-yard field goals, 54-yard plus field goals, he could make Kyle Shanahan more aggressive
yes,
late in the first half. Where, okay, let's say the game's tied and we have 45 seconds on the clock, and forget who the quarterback is. If you have a kicker that can make a 54-yard field goal, Shanahan might be more aggressive, might go for it more, and in return might get you a lead into halftime instead of being tied or at a deficit. Like, again, Jake Moody, if he can become who they hope he might be, which I would think it's like the best kicker in football, if
yeah,
he's a third round pick, like this could add another element to San Francisco's offense of, hey, we don't have to knee it 3 times. Let's take a risk here. We
yeah.
can gamble to
And
get
with
some
Purdy,
points
he
before
seemed to be
halftime
a little
now.
bit more ballsy than he was with
Right.
Garoppolo,
Right.
or
And like
even
so
Trey Lance for that matter.
if Kyle Shanahan is ultra aggressive already with Brock Purdy, imagine if he's a kicker that can actually make some kicks. I mean, my goodness, this
Be
guy's
like,
going balls to the
he
wall.
only needs to get to the 45-yard line
Right.
because this
Like
guy can
you're not
hit almost a 60-yard field goal.
you're not going to have any more, ball on the 38-yard line. Why is Shanahan punting on 4th and 2, 4th and 4?
Yeah, because he doesn't have
You're
the
kicking
leg,
field
right?
goals now. And like the Jake Moody pick, I think touches a lot more part of the Niners organization. I think fans will give it reason to.
It's going to be it'll definitely be either a sink or swim type pick.
Yeah.
Well, it's either going to go over like a fart in church where people just hate it, or it's going to be the greatest thing since peanut butter and jelly. Like he's going to be like, you know, the greatest Niners kicker of all time. I mean, they picked Doug Bryan in the last years that won a Super Bowl back in my freshman year in high school. So maybe that's an onus, a sign that we're going to win a Super Bowl this year. It's been a long time, homie. I was 14, almost 15 when we won a Super Bowl. I'm 43 years old. It's
Wow.
time. Yeah, I'm
It
old.
is. I've
Yeah,
never
I'm
seen him
40.
win, so please, if Jake Moody's the reason
My
they win.
nephew, yes, my nephew's I'll be 28 this year. All these experiences, the Super Bowl disappointment and the playoff losses. My nephew's like, I just want one.
Yeah,
I don't care about a dynasty. I just want one. I'm like, so do I
exactly.
for you, but a lot for me too, because we're going on almost 30 years. This is
Yeah,
ridiculous. But yeah,
it's torture.
yeah, if he's the guy that wins that Super Bowl with a game-winning kick, then like I told you, whatever they could have picked him the first pick in the first round, teams aren't going to matter because he'd be like that
Right,
guy won us a Super Bowl.
right.
Um, let's transition over to a pick that a lot of people criticize, and now that I've had time to look at it, I kind of agree with them. Cameron Latou, number one,
Ugh,
101 overall, tight end out of Alabama. A lot of people say he just doesn't really have any elite traits. He's the most vanilla tight end in the class. They could have picked anybody else, but they picked Latou. What's your opinion?
So I did my show yesterday and I talked about this pick. And I said, if you're at the ice cream bar and usually when you're a little kid, you want vanilla. It's the easiest flavor to take in when you're a child because your taste buds haven't grown yet. You haven't experienced life yet on all the food the world has for you. But Latu's not even vanilla bean. He ain't vanilla swirl. He's just vanilla. He is not a great blocker, not a great pass catcher. Like he does nothing special. And I don't want to hate on him. This is not, me saying he's not going to be good. He can be a fine tight end. Now, to give him some kudos here, he did just transition from edge rusher to tight end at Bama, but that doesn't mean that's the guy you take in the third round. To me, if that guy's a fifth, sixth round pick, fine, whatever, cool. He's a project guy who doesn't do anything special. He'll have time to grow. But then you take Braden Willis in the seventh round, who is one of, if not the best blocking tight end coming out of the draft this year. And you can instantly say he might be tight end number 2. He might be the inline tight end while
He
Kittle's a
plays
pass
with
catcher.
bad intentions too. He's like,
Right.
yeah, he's a lot like Kittle in that way, but bigger.
And Latu does nothing where you go, oh, I can see why they picked him there. That makes sense. Like even Davis Allen from Clemson, he's a phenomenal pass catching tight end. And you go, okay, like I could have swallowed the pill of them overdrafting for a phenomenal passing tight end. And instead they overdrafted who many people, whether it's an expert, one of us doing mock drafts, nobody had Cameron Latu going in the fourth round or the fifth round. He was a sixth or late fifth to seventh round pick because he just doesn't do anything that really makes you go, I can see why you picked him at 101. Like, again, he's vanilla. He's fine. But my concern of this pick, and again, I'm not wishing death on this kid. I want him to be good. It's a good thing if he's good for us. I want him to succeed.
Good. We just don't think you are going to be.
Right. And again, I hope he proves me wrong. I'll eat all the crow in the world. I'm okay with that. But when the tight end that you get later in the draft has better traits, fits a need that you have more than the guy you picked in the third round, to like, if he was just super raw, but but it was, his body, his physical traits were off the charts, and you go, okay, he's a 6'5", 240 tight end that's built and jacked. Okay, I get it. But you see him and you go, he may have been the worst player on the Bama offense last year. And you pick him in the third round. Like, that doesn't scream, that's a great pick. It screams, you may have reached here.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. When a lot of people say they reached, they if you listen to the post-draft press conference, they're talking about how they didn't want to reach for an offensive tackle because the ones that were left just didn't fit what they do. Okay, but you kind of did that with tight end though.
Right.
Because we got to draft the tight end because this is a tight end heavy draft. And then you draft a guy that literally moves the needle on nothing. Listen, I'm not a poo-poo draft guy. Like, I don't poop on the Niners a lot and say they did do this and that because we honestly don't know about the draft. But man, some people were like I said on Twitter, it was meltdown time with people, especially with this pick and the Moody pick were the two picks that people just lost their collective minds over. And with Braden Willis, even though he was so late in the draft, some people think he could be a decent pass catcher too.
Yeah.
So listen, man, I've had Larry Krueger on in the past, and he always says that football is a meritocracy. It doesn't matter if you're the first pick or the last pick. If you contribute and help a team win, it doesn't matter. And and unfortunately, like me and Ted were talking earlier, if Zane Gonzalez ends up being that guy, just like, it happens sometimes. Sometimes you draft the wrong guy, and a guy that's an undrafted free agent like Purdy, who's the last pick in the draft, all of a sudden now everybody thinks he's the second coming of Joe Montana. And I hope he is, but we really don't have with Purdy and even with Lance, we just don't have enough body of work to make any type of outlandish takes and say this is you can't do that. And the same thing with this kid, Latu. Maybe he is something, but he's like he's like the default character when you create a player on a video game before
Right.
you start changing like his face and his body type. He's just the number 88 that's spinning or
Right.
whatever number
Right.
he is. That's
Right.
him. It was just like he's just like he's just like normal, like just a basic vanilla. He's like what is it? Imposter vanilla. Like
Right.
with people who have like vegan or people that can't have certain things and they have to buy like the fake version of the ice cream. He's that
He's the,
guy.
he's the impossible Whopper, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's like made out of like protein chunks of weird
Tofu.
stuff. Yeah, just beans. You eat it and you're like, this tastes nothing like a freaking hamburger. You got to put a bunch of
Right.
crap on top of it to, uh, mid card. Yeah, see, he's a mid card, just like me. I'm a mid card streamer. I embrace that. By the way,
Yeah.
you saw my meltdown on Twitter about hating YouTube and everything, and I've embraced the mid card. I've embraced the suck. I'm a mid card streamer. You know,
Hey,
I am what I am. I'm the Latu of streamers, and then there's guys, and then there's the guys that are Braden Willis, and they
so,
get all the views.
sometimes the mid carder is better at their job than the champion. The WWE, like I used to watch a ton of WWE, still do. Like sometimes there's John Cena, and sometimes there's the mid card guy who just works his butt off, and you're like, wow, that guy's better than John Cena at his job. And sometimes it's the case.
Yeah, like for instance, everybody thought Hulk Hogan was the crap, right?
Yeah,
But I loved Macho.
yeah,
Small, but dude could cut a promo. He was good in the ring, and his character was always on. He kayfabed it like crazy. Uh, and Hogan was just a big puffy guy on steroids who was balding since he was like 18, and like
good old Terry.
he looked old from jump. I
Oh
can
yeah,
never understand like how people got so into him. I think that's why a lot of people hated John Cena. I used to hate John Cena too, but I'm way more of
oh,
a I'm a CM Punk guy because
okay,
I'm straight edge. I don't drink or smoke,
right, right.
and I like the fact that he speaks his mind and ruffles feathers because that's exactly what I do, especially at work. I'm one of those people where you either like me or they're like, man, Aaron's an ass, So such is life. Let's get it back on the field here. Darren or Daryl Luter, South Alabama cornerback, number 155 overall. What'd you think of the pick? It seemed like a pretty solid corner pick. He's got almost 6 feet tall, rangy. He's quick. What do you think?
I loved this pick, and I did have him mocked to us in my final mock draft just a lot later in the draft.
Okay.
And but I understand why they picked him here because he's not, a huge corner, but he has some height to him. He's has
5'11's
long
pretty good.
he has long arms. He's
Mm-hmm.
aggressive. He's unafraid of contact. Like he will get his hands dirty. And he has really good ball skills. Like look at all of what they like all of the defensive players they picked in this draft are either really fast or have phenomenal ball skills.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if the defensive motto is going to carry over and be swarm and you're getting young players that can play a position like Luter can, where he can come in and he can be your number two nickel corner behind Oliver. And if Oliver falters, and you hope he doesn't, but if he does, I really wouldn't be too upset if Luter's getting, a lot of reps there because he has the ability to step in and be a solid nickel corner in year one. I truly believe that. Now, again, is he going to be amazing? He's not going to be Jimmy Ward. He's not going to be a top end guy instantly, but I do like the traits that he has. Again, he's long, he's lengthy, has a little bit of height to him. He's physical. Like, I do think that he's really good in man coverage as well.
I
And if
feel
you
like
can,
that
like,
was Wilkes' pick, by the way.
oh yeah, 100%, because you can tell that again, it's either a playmaker or a guy that just plays really fast, and Luter kind of is in the middle there where it's like
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't play extremely fast and he isn't the best playmaker, but he's really good at both those things. And he gives them a solid man coverage cornerback where they primarily play zone. But if you can get a really good man coverage corner in this day and age in the NFL playing slot against Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett and maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba, it's a really good pick in the mid rounds on day 3.
Yeah, and I said this when they drafted him. I said Ambry Thomas's days are numbered.
Yeah.
I think if this kid turns out, Thomas is a goner.
Yeah.
Cut down. He's regressed. Lenore's had his issues last year. He was kind of hot and cold. He was the guy that teams targeted because Mosley went down and Charvarius Ward. Charvarius Ward struggled a little bit here and there last year too. I think part of that had to do with the Niners pass rush not being all that in a bag of chips. But yeah, I could see him, and you're right. He's not great at one thing, but he's got a little bit of everything in his game, which to me is the best. It's like, when you have employees, some are really fast, some are really organized, or you get the one that like who was me, where I was like super disgustingly disorganized, but I wasn't fast either, but I was solid and I could always be dependent on.
Right.
He's not really that. He actually is somewhat fast and somewhat organized. He's like your perfect employee. He always shows up. He's kind of good at everything, not great at anything. So if that's what we get, and he's the guy behind Oliver, and he's not expected to play, I think that's great. And he's going to get tested like crazy in camp with these receivers. He's going to have to cover. Yeah, I'm sure they'll test him against Ayuk or Debo and all these guys, Juwan Jennings. It'll be interesting. I always say to people, the best way to get guys ready for the NFL is when you scrimmage in training camp, and you really get to see who's made for it and who's not, because you're essentially going up against a starting offense, and I think that gets you as ready for anybody else in the league as anything else is going against the starting caliber guys. It's really hard to make, when people try to make they talk about stuff in mini camp or training camp, but guys aren't going against with any pass rush or defensive line that's like one-on-one. I don't see that element as a way you can judge people. So he'll get his ability to grow. I like the pick too. And a lot of people, like I said, I use my Twitter as my barometer for picks. A lot of people like the pick. A lot of people were like, solid, great pick. I didn't see anybody saying he was trash or he was garbage or anything. So I go with the consensus, except for with the Moody pick. I don't care. Moody was my dude, and I don't care. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna stand on that one, and hopefully he proves me right. But yeah, my buddy Charles asked me where's ZZ Top. He's on the Monday stream, homie. My buddy Ryan from No Border Sports. My buddy Charles calls him ZZ Top because he looks like one of the guys. But
okay,
let's go to a player that a lot of people are in love with, including me, George, or Robert Beal, pick 173, edge. I said this with Ted, and I'll say this with you. Once you get into the later part of the draft, you don't get the well-rounded guys. You get guys with traits, really good traits. His trait is get off. He's GTFO. Get the fuck out of here, off the line of scrimmage. And I think the Niners, above anything else, need a guy opposite Bosa that has an amazing get off, because Bosa is like your all around solid, great, Pro Bowl, probably Hall of Fame level guy, but he needs a little help on the other side. And I think that guy could unlock this whole pass rush. Because remember when we had D Ford and he was healthy for like 5 minutes, that pass rush was insane, with DeForest Buckner and Armstead. I mean, they were getting, it was bad, especially for when we played the Browns that one Monday night and we were all over their quarterback. What was your take on the pick? I was very excited. A lot of people were very excited, and I keep thinking the Niners might go make a move based on some of the cap room they made after or pre-draft, but nothing has happened so far. Maybe they see something in him that they're not going to do it. What was your take on the pick?
Yeah, I think like when the pick came across and the music hit, and it was like, oh, okay, it's right. Some of the best music in all of sports.
Freaking greatest music ever.
And when it came across, I was like, oh, like, really? Okay. And so I dove into him afterwards and I said, okay, like I understand why this pick was made. Because, like you said, this team has needed a speed rusher across from Nick Bosa since D Ford's unfortunate physical health started to deteriorate really too early in his career. But I don't think he'll be a starting player ever, unfortunately. That being said, it doesn't mean that he can't contribute at all. Like, sometimes you just need a breath of fresh air on the defense, and I think he can bring that. Where The past couple years, it's been Bosa and Armstead and Ebukam, which Ebukam's okay. He's a fine, solid edge rusher. Doesn't have many, edge pass rushing moves, but he gets the job done. 5.5, 6.5 sacks, per year. I think Beal, because he plays again so fast, and he is that speed edge rusher they desperately needed since D Ford has gotten hurt and then eventually been out of town. Like, I do think Beal brings something different than a lot of the edge rushers currently on the team. Like, Clellan Farrell is not Robert Beal. They play very differently. Ebukam, who's now in Indianapolis, very different than Beal was. And so I do think that, like, what they got in Beal is kind of the guy who has his foot on the pedal nonstop. Now, that nonstop, I don't think is starting caliber initially. I think it's okay. Look, go in there and give us, 10, 15 snaps a game, give one of the guys a break, but also bring that high energy, and you can be a game changer. I think that's what his role is going to be on this defense while he learns. And I could see his potential being 4 sacks a year, being a really good depth guy, and is coming in wrecking shop for like 15, 20 snaps a game, and then going back to the bench. Like that's what Beal looks like to me.
So you're essentially saying he's more of a uh, situational pass rusher.
Right. Like
third and long, third down,
yeah.
need to get the team off the field. You bring in, you already have Bosa in there, of course. You have Hargrave, and then maybe you bring in another pass rushing defensive tackle, someone who's a little fast. You take out. Trying to think of his name this year. He was hurt last year, and he's going to play this year. I can't think of his name. Anyways, but like you have a NASCAR. You remember the NASCAR package where they'd have certain pass rushers come in. They're not going to run the ball, so you're after the passer. I could see that. He just seems to have a lot of something that a lot of the 49er guys just don't have. I thought Ebukam was a base 4-3 defensive end who really didn't. He was like a solid starter. I never saw the reason to keep him and pay all that money. And I think the 49ers kind of came to that realization too. And like Amenahu, he ended up leaving. He was okay. He was kind of, you could use him inside, you could use him outside, but like he didn't move the needle one way or the other. I mean, if this kid could be just a little bit better than that, you know what I mean? Where he's like, oh yeah, he's going to get, and then he comes in and he gets a sack or comes in and pushes the pocket. Because sometimes it's not even about getting the sack. It's about pushing the pocket. You got Bosa on one side. He's going to command a double team. And then you already have Hargrave is probably going to be in there. And then if you got a guy off the end who nobody's really paying attention to because he's, like you said, he's a guy who might come in 15 plays, he could be really valuable. I hopefully think, that didn't make any sense. Let me restart that. I really hope that they make a move for an edge rusher in free agency because they have a lot of guys, but they don't have the guy opposite Nick on the other side. They have a lot of like, somebody said, you guys have so much depth, you don't need anything. But that's the problem. They're all depth guys.
Right.
Like who's our starting end opposite? Who's the starting end? Nobody knows. Is it going to be Drake Jackson? Maybe. Is it going to be the guy we got from the Lions? Probably not. Is it going to be Clellan Farrell? Probably not. So I would hope, because then the way I look at it is with some players, if the depth chart is where it's supposed to be, guys fit their role. If guys are meant to play out of position and play and be something that they're not, which is a starting caliber defensive end, and they really don't have that game, that's when you see people essentially suck and they're not very good. So, but I like the pick just because he gives us something that we haven't had in a while. Let's go to next pick is TCU linebacker D Winters. A lot of people like this pick, including me and including you. He looks like a faster version. He looks like a better version, faster version of Greg Greenlaw. Super explosive. What'd you think of the pick?
So it's funny because I initially wanted Service Dennis from Pittsburgh, who I thought was very Dre Greenlaw-esque 2.0. And Tampa Bay picked him in the exact same round, just like 4 picks ahead of us, which they also picked Yaya Diaby, who I also wanted from Louisville, in the 3rd round. So I was like, screw you, Tampa Bay. But then I saw the pick, it was D Winters, and I go, okay. I said, this kid he he may have put the best game of a linebacker in this class on film against Michigan. I
I
mean,
heard
he
that.
was
Yep.
all over the place. Now, he needs to be more consistent. Sometimes he plays too fast. And I do think if he can become, more concise, more controlled, like it's almost like, having controlled insanity and like controlled chaos. If that can be what D Winters is, I don't think he'll be Aziz Al-Shire or play that role this year, but I do think he has the upside to eventually, like you said, replace Trey Greenlaw, where in 2, 3 years, if Greenlaw's out of here and it's an older Fred Warner and this, pretty much this bottle of lightning in D Winters, like that is perfect. And that may be his ceiling. Dre Greenlaw, 2.0,
That's a
2.5, who
great
knows?
ceiling to have.
Right, like Dre
'Cause-
Greenlaw is one of the best, if not the best, number 2 linebacker, off-ball linebacker
Yeah.
in
w-
football.
when it comes to stack linebackers, the Niners, I think, have the two best
Yeah,
for their scheme. There's different types of linebackers. You have your 3-4 guys, a lot, the old days with Willis and Bowman, they're big, thick, pause, linebackers who were just, they look like they could, a guy like Ray Lewis. I
right.
know you've seen that clip before of Chad Johnson trying to block him, thinking he didn't see him, and Chad
Oh,
Johnson
yeah.
just gets wrecked. And Willis did not, uh, Ray Lewis did nothing. He just stood there. And I was like,
Right,
those linebackers that we have are not quite those guys. What the Niners essentially have is if their defensive line does what they're supposed to, they pick up the scraps. As you
right,
saw in the NFC Championship game, when the defensive line isn't doing their job, the Niners linebackers get exposed because they're just not big enough to deal with that. They're meant to scrape off whatever gets through. They're not meant to be, a defensive line getting blown off the ball, and they're there to take care of it. That's not what they do. Um, to me, I think if even he comes in, if because uh, we have trying to think of the linebackers, the base
we got
defensive ends that are there.
we got
Orrin Burks,
Warner, Greenlaw, Oren Burks. We have McCrary Ball is trying to filter in
McCrary.
there, and then
Oh
we have
yeah, I'm
then
a big on
Flanagan
McCrary
Fowles.
ball guy. Flanagan Fowles. You're right. Do you think he could beat out any of those guys,
Uh,
or do you think it's going
I
to be one of
think
those things where Kyle doesn't trust him and he's going to make him
no,
earn his spot?
I think D Winters could be an instant special teamer, like
Okay,
instantly, and so because of that,
they
I
definitely
do
need
think
that.
I do think Demetrius Flanagan Falls could be out the door. Don't forget, they initially released him this offseason and signed him on a smaller contract to come back. Now, I do like DFF, but when your team is already saying you're not worth the money we're currently paying you, we're going to reduce your salary and you
Yeah,
agree to it, and then you draft the linebacker that has really good traits, plays really fast, and has the potential to be a starting really good caliber linebacker in the NFL, like you have been put on notice. And I do think DFF, I think, is a guy who could be put on notice. Again, I like him. I don't think you cut a veteran like Orrin Burks who has experience. The only experience that I know of anybody on the current roster that's filled in for Fred Warner, like whenever Warner got hurt, it was Orrin Burks in that, on the defense. So I think he's safe. DFF though, I think D Winters is coming for your job this year and
so do
eventually
I.
coming for Greenlaw's job.
I totally agree with that. Let's not talk about Fred Warner getting old yet.
Right,
Let's
right.
let's take advantage of the years we still have him young, because I don't.
Of course.
You're scaring me. You're making me think of the future, which means I'm going to be older. And then we'll bang off these two at the top. Two more. These two that I didn't print off the other guy, but Braden Willis. We talked about him. Tight end, Oklahoma, pick 247, and Ronnie Bell. I thought the Ronnie Bell pick was interesting because he's not really fast and he's not really big, but he's a
Right.
Shanahan type guy because he gets separation.
Yep.
He gets separation. One thing Kyle Shanahan loves is guys who can get separation off the line of scrimmage and get open. They don't have to play any schemes or get you open by, rubbing a guy off, getting you open on a play. So he's an interesting one. And he kind of reminds me of, and I know you guys are going to come before me, he kind of reminds me of Dante Pettis a little bit
The
because he's kind of
size, yes.
slight. Yeah. So I got a little bit of like a PTSD. I'm like, but he doesn't seem like he's a weirdo cat. And then Braden Willis, I mean, a lot of people were more excited about him than Latu being picked. You seem to be of that mindset.
Yeah, the Latu pick had me in a cold, dark room
Yeah, it
facing the
was
wall for a few days. It was just like, I don't know what this
basic,
was, but I
basic
hate
ass.
this.
Yeah, it's basic ass. It's just like, okay, and
But then the Willis pick, I was like, we did it. We got our blocking tight end finally. Like I had Willis ranked ahead of Latu. Almost every other draft mock expert analyst, they were like, Cameron Latu, oh, Braden Willis, oh my goodness, like this guy has something to him. Again, we talked about him a little bit earlier. Really good blocker. He can actually fill a need for this offense. Like I could like when they drafted Charlie Warner, that was supposed to be his role. He was
mm-hmm.
supposed to be the blocking tight end, and hasn't come, hasn't turned out to be that guy. Braden Willis, I think, has a higher potential than Charlie Warner, has proven to be a top 3, if not the number 1 blocking tight end in college coming out this year. But Ronnie Bell, he's interesting because, like you said, he's the prototypical Shanahan receiver where he gets separation, he doesn't mind working over the middle, and once he gets the ball, he likes to have some fun. Now, he isn't the most physical player, but he likes to get yak. He likes to fight for every yard. And again, he isn't the biggest guy. He isn't the fastest guy. He just does what you want once he has the ball in his hands. And if you can get separation over the middle in this offense, now here's the crazy thing is that he was recovering from a major injury. And last year was his first year back, I believe. And so you give him more time with a better offensive head coach in a scheme that might even fit him better than Michigan did. Look, Ronnie Bell may not be your number 3 receiver, but if he's your number 4, that's a good pick. And I do think Ronnie Bell can be that in this offense.
Do you think he beats out the guy we got from Pittsburgh? I forget his name, wide receiver.
Oh, McLeod?
Yeah, you think he's kind of or is McLeod safe? Because McLeod's got one thing that our receivers don't have. That's he's got some quicks. A lot of our guys are kind of basic speed. I mean, Debo's pretty good in the open field. Ayuk,
right.
I will say this about Ayuk. The one knock I have with Ayuk is Ayuk can get open, but Ayuk just doesn't have that second gear that can get him down the field and not be touched. He seems to always get caught. Unlike Debo, who seems like a squashy little guy that runs, but once he's got the ball, it's pretty much it's a goner. What do you don't think you think he's just a solid number 4 receiver?
Yeah, I think if you look
or
at
5?
at least this year, look at what San Francisco has. You got Debo, you have Ayuk, you have Juwan Jennings, you have Danny Gray, and then you have McLeod. That's already 5 guys who I think are safe. I hope Danny Gray can actually do something in this offense this year, whether it's Purdy or Lance, whoever's playing quarterback. I think he can contribute in a big way.
Yeah,
Again,
scheme him open. Come on, let's do
like
something here.
3rd round pick that didn't do anything last year. Like he needs to be on the field or at least win or work his way on the field. But that 6th receiver role always seems to be kind of open where maybe they aren't active every single week, but Ronnie Bell, I think, like if he's not beating out Willie Snead or Chris Conley, like I think that's a problem because Chris Conley, an older guy, veteran guy, he hasn't been able to stick anywhere recently. Willie Snead, who he was okay in New Orleans, he's basically a blocking receiver now at this age and this time in his career. Like Ronnie Bell has higher upside than that. And if he can, even if Ronnie Bell can block just okay, I think what he can do as a receiver, running routes, getting open over the middle, to me, that's worth a roster spot. And guess what? Even if you think he's a practice squad stash, it's a pretty deep practice squad stash for you for a year, where it's a guy that, whether it's this year, late in the year, whether it's next year, like I do think he can actually contribute to this Niners team, which that's hard to get for a guy late 7th round. Like that's a late 7th round pick. I know Brock Purdy last year, and if it's Ronnie Bell this year, that's good on San Francisco.
The Niners are essentially the way they draft sometimes, because they're pretty loaded, they stash guys. They
Yeah.
essentially have like a not a farm team, but like a minor league system. And when it's time to call up a guy, who because you see him every day, you know what he does. You've seen him in training camp, you've seen him in OTAs. The league has no idea who the hell this guy is, but you do.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we see him and we're like, "Whoa, this guy's incredible!" And my brother always says that because he's a Dolphins fan. He goes, "You guys draft and you're undrafted free agents. It's like unbelievable." He goes, "It's like there's always another guy coming to replace the guy that's currently playing. It's like the Niners are always prepared 2 steps ahead." And that's why when I see a lot of these picks, I see that like maybe a guy, when we were talking about the edge rusher, maybe they stash him. Maybe he doesn't play this year. Maybe they refine him and make him better. He may never, like you said, he may never be a starting guy, but do they really need him? Especially if they end up bringing in an edge guy off of free agency, and then you already have Drake Jackson and 2 other guys ahead of him. Essentially, he doesn't need to play. So I love that about the 49ers. Um, as long as they hit on the players. If they stash guys
Of
and then they
course.
suck, then it's an
Right.
issue. How much more time do you got?
I got plenty.
Okay. Let's what do we got here? I'm done with my crunchy paper.
Well, don't forget the last pick of the draft for San Francisco,
I
Jalen
told
Campbell.
well, I did forget about him. Go ahead. Give me
No,
your
I
give me
just
your
think,
give me your prognosis.
look, he is again a linebacker that can play nickel, and that is so rare in the NFL. He may not even make the team, but just to give you a little bit of tidbit, like he's a linebacker that can play nickel. Like, how many of those guys exist right now? There ain't many. And again, he might be a practice squad guy. He might get cut. He may never do anything in the NFL. But if you are built like a linebacker and can keep up with a nickel and slot receiver, that's like really special. At least you have one trait. Again, it's speed, it's swarm, it's whatever you want. Like Steve Wilkes was like, we are going to go after the football with every single player we have. And again, he might be nothing, but there's a little bit that could be something. And I think that's really interesting.
I think the Niners coach really well. I think the Niners develop really well. Um, I think that's underrated. I think sometimes we think coaching and coordinators don't matter. It's all about the talent. I 100% disagree. I used to think like that. Like it's all about the talent. Coaches don't really do anything. Horse crap. Coaching has a lot to do with it. Development has a lot to do with it. Look how prepared Purdy was coming into this past year. Amazing. So, and even Jimmy Garoppolo, as much as we can't stand him, he looked amazing too. So, I think that had a lot to do with our quarterback coach, who never coached in his life until he came to the San Francisco 49ers. So, yeah, I think coaching does matter. So, I always have hope for all these late round guys. What's your you mentioned this after the draft or before the draft, and maybe during the draft. Niners cleared up some cap space for an edge player. Everybody's screaming Yannick. He tweeted he's coming, like he's going to go somewhere. Do you think the Niners actually make a move on an edge rusher, or are we just are we working ourselves into getting pissed off and they don't sign anybody?
So today, San Francisco signed Isaiah Winstead, and he
Yep.
is a receiver, and
Yep, I
he's their
saw it.
90th man on the roster. So right now the roster's full. Now again, you can cut one of these guys like it's nothing and move on because there's no guaranteed money to it. With that said, I think the question is, does San Francisco need an edge rusher? I think so. If they don't sign an edge rusher, I think they have put themselves in a position where it's one of two things. Either Drake Jackson is blowing them away, they think he's the guy, they think he's that bendy speed rusher they desperately need across from Nick Bosa to give him some help. Again, if they don't get an edge rusher, it almost seems like despite like they have the money to make the move, whether it's Unique Ngakwe or Jadeveon Clowney or Leonard Floyd, who I think Clowney and Yannick make a lot more sense. But if it was me,
No
And I
Clowney
know
for me. He's always hurt.
Clowney's always hurt. Maybe Unique's too expensive. If it's me, I'm calling a team you already made a trade with during the draft. I'm saying, hey, Minnesota, you don't want Zadarius Smith. He don't want to play with you either. His
We love
contract's
him.
too big for you. We'll give you a 6th-round pick, 5th-round pick before he even hits the market. We know here in San Francisco, we're getting a comp pick anyways, no matter who leaves in the 5th round. And I think you get Zadarius Smith here, rework the contract, let him be that speed rusher for a 1-year deal. You add in some
Mhm.
void years, say goodbye next year, and hope Jackson and Beal and whoever else you sign
Yep.
hits. To me, that makes the
Yep.
most sense. Of course, you want Unique Ngakoue. I think he's the best guy on the market right now. But if he's pricing himself out and you don't want the guy who's hurt like Clowney or you don't want to pay for Leonard Floyd, I think Zadarius Smith makes a ton of sense. A veteran
Mhm.
presence can help this defense. Like he can give you 7 sacks easily. And this could arguably be the best defensive line he's ever played on. I know when he was in Green Bay, they had the Smith brothers. This would be the best one. If it's Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, and Zadarius Smith with Drake Jackson behind him and Clellan Farrell behind him and Kerry Hyder and Javon Kinlaw, who can hopefully stay healthy, like that would make this defense so much deeper. And I think it's a move that like San Francisco has been so aggressive recently. Trey Lance, McCaffrey, get aggressive and go get your edge rusher too. And you can also pay Nick Bosa to lower his cap hit this year. Like they
Yep.
can save money. Like this is a move I think they should make. Will they though? I don't think so, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't either. If anything, they should see if there's an offensive tackle out there. But if you listen
Right.
to the post-draft press conference, they seem to be all in on McKivitz. So
To be
that,
fair, to give
go
them
ahead.
credit, Joey Fisher from Shepherd, I believe, he was supposed to be like a 5th or 6th round pick, and
Yeah.
he was an undrafted guy. So
Yep.
I get it. I would have taken,
That's the guy with the short
Salvadori,
arms, right?
right, uh, or Freeland over Latu and got my tackle there. I would have loved that
Mhm.
pick a lot more if it was. But again, if Joey Fisher hits and you essentially added another 5th, 6th round pick to be your right tackle, I think it's a big question mark. If McKivitz gets hurt and it's Jalen Moore or Matt Pryor, that's a nightmare scenario for you. But again, things seem to work out for San Francisco more often than not the last couple years. So give them the benefit of the doubt. That being said, go get Zadarius Smith, go get Ngakoue, make your team even better because you have the funds to do so.
Maybe they take that money and they wait till mid-season to make a trade.
Maybe.
But I
I
think you
don't
should
know.
use it now. I know, I
Yeah,
agree with you.
get the
I
guy in
can't
the
my brother
building. Like,
my brother's like, "You don't need any more talent on your line." He goes, "You got enough. You guys are loaded." I'm like, "Yeah, but if Nick Bosa goes down, like, what do we got on the edge? We don't have anything.
and
We need
and
at least
you
one
can
more
never
guy."
you can never predict health. So why not get the most
Right.
talented
And Nick
roster
Bosa
before the year
has
starts?
issues with his health, so he's wound up like a super steroided out GI Joe. Like anytime something's gonna pop on his body, the dude is ripped. Uh, his brother is way more injury prone than he is.
Right.
So thank God we don't have that issue. 49ers signed free agent quarterback Brandon Allen. Is he the next starting quarterback of the San Francisco
Jeez,
49ers?
dude. I've
I
seen all
had I
these.
had to ask.
It's like because the Bengals signed Trevor Siemian, is Joe Burrow in trouble? No. It's like
Right.
again, this quarterback battle is going to come down to if Purdy's healthy, he's the guy. If he's not, can Trey Lance beat out Sam Darnold? Like I genuinely think they want Trey Lance to beat out Sam Darnold. I don't think they want Sam Darnold being the starting quarterback. I think he has more potential than he's shown in a better offense, a better system with more weapons. He can do something. But again, if it's me, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, if come playoff time, Sam Darnold's our starting quarterback, close the book. I'm sorry,
Oh,
close the book.
and a lot of people were making that. They were talking about that. I'm like, if that's our starting quarterback for the season, if you
Right.
think he's good enough to beat out Trey Lance, this franchise is going down the toilet this year. He ain't taking us to the promised land. People are like, well, he's never been coached under this and he's never had. Dude, stop.
Two
So what
things can be
happened?
true at once.
Right, but what happened with Purdy doesn't like everyone's like now everybody just wants their version of Brock Purdy in the 7th round.
Right.
That doesn't happen yet once in a million, once in a Googleplex, like Doc says from
Right.
Back to the Future. Like that just doesn't happen all the time. And like you can't recreate something that doesn't happen. So like, I don't know. We'll see. I just want I just want to have a healthy quarterback to start the season because I think this roster, when healthy, can compete for a championship, even
Yeah.
against the Kansas City Chiefs. The only thing you got to do with the Chiefs is you just got to score every time. Because your defense, as good as they are, for some reason, when they play the Chiefs, they can't stop a friggin' nosebleed. So, yeah. I just bit my lip. Uh, will Trey Lance be traded before the season starts?
No.
I
No.
don't think so either.
Unless
Because
a
I know you saw the
team.
narrative from Larry Krueger, love Larry,
Yeah,
where
he's a
he
coworker of mine.
he ate a lot of crow after that one.
Yep.
Uh, it was I'm not gonna lie, I kind of believed him. I had that feeling too. That is a possibility. But the more you thought about it, the more the question at the quarterback position with health and stuff, the more you realize like it's probably not going to happen. But it definitely, when he said stranger things have happened. What's your take? You don't think he's moving?
I don't think he's getting traded at all this year. I
Okay.
think if that trade's going to happen, it's going to take his entire almost near draft stock to fall. But even then, let's say Trey Lance doesn't start this year, whether it's Purdy or Darnold. Let's say it's just those two, and Trey Lance loses the job to those two guys. It's not like Sam Darnold wasn't traded twice.
Right.
What for a second round pick or a third round pick? Like Trey Lance needs to be on this team this year. And the reason why I say that is because one, Trey Lance has actually, despite it being the Texans, won you a game you had to win,
Yep.
or at least a quarterback on the team when you had to win that game, and made a couple big plays and showed more consistency in the second half, obviously. But he's won you a game you had to win against Houston in 2021. Two, you've gone through quarterbacks like they're nothing. You've gone through quarterbacks like Otter Pops in the summertime. You're down 17 because they're so freaking good. And it's like, look, like, I don't think like Trey Lance, even if he's quarterback 3, he's more valuable on this roster than playing somewhere else for a 5th round pick.
Yeah,
I,
because of
I just,
the injuries on this team. I mean, you have to be prepared. They cannot be in a position where they got stuck last year in the NFC Championship game. That is unacceptable. That cannot
yeah.
happen.
And it's not like Trey Lance doesn't still have really good traits. Like, I was someone who during that draft, again, whether you were pro Jimmy, I work at 95.7 The Game, by the way. That's how Larry's coworker of mine.
Boom.
Um,
Mic drop.
um, but during that process, it was Fields or Mac Jones or Trey Lance, and I watched all the the pro days and the film. And again, I am no elite draft expert who gets everything correct, but I watch that and I go, Trey Lance, like, this feels like a San Francisco 49er. He feels like he fits here. And it's not like, despite breaking his foot, that goes away. Like, the traits he has don't go away because you break your foot. Yeah, maybe you use him differently. I would probably agree with that. But it's not like his arm still isn't very strong, like he can't run, like he isn't a physical presence playing quarterback. Like, they trusted him enough last year to give him the job. I think they walked back on that a little bit, bringing Garoppolo back into the room. But it's not like they still wouldn't have said, "Hey, you were going to be quarterback 2 behind Jimmy Garoppolo anyways." Like, Trey Lance still has traits that make you go, "Wow, he can
Yeah,
be
he has
special."
elite traits.
And he's
He
like
has elite
22
traits,
years old,
and he's
23
so
years old.
young.
It's like,
They
why would you cut that for
them
nothing?
not playing him his first year was a travesty. I know we got to the NFC Championship game. We were two plays away or 2 minutes away from beating the Rams, but I really think that playing experience, because then of course he gets hurt last year.
Right.
eh, I feel for him. I don't hate
Yeah.
him, but at the
No.
same, like I tweeted a response to my guy Lawrence Jackson. I think it was Lawrence Jackson, platform 246 on YouTube. Go check him out, by the way, everybody. He said something along the lines. He tweeted something about Trey Lance, and I said, listen, Purdy's my guy, and I trust him, but at the same time, I am rooting super hard for Trey Lance. I want Trey Lance to be the guy because if Trey Lance is the guy, this offense goes from being really good to like unstoppable. Because now you essentially have your version of, I'm not saying he's going to be Mahomes or Allen, but one of those guys that can move around, has a cannon, opens up so many other levels to your offense where there's areas teams can't squat on the 10, 15-yard play. They have to, and then all of a sudden Danny Gray becomes a guy in the offense like, oh God, now we have to deal with that guy. And then we got all these other guys underneath doing all this stuff. Like, how do you stop it? That's what with the Chiefs. Mahomes makes he makes that offense unstoppable because, when they had Tyreek Hill and then they had Kelsey underneath, it's like, you have to play everybody back. You got to play for the deep stuff. And you got Kelsey over the middle, just gouging, like you're screwed. And then if you don't watch it, you got a quarterback that can scramble and make throws falling down on his face. That's what the Niners, I think, were seeing in him and wanted that from him. And if they ever get that out of him, essentially the Niners, would, I think they'd catch a Lombardi with. I think they could win a Lombardi with Purdy, but a lot of things would have to go right. Because I think he has some limitations in his games, and I think teams are starting to catch up with him last year. But I still am a big Purdy guy. If they had to play a game tomorrow, I would go Purdy all the way. But I hope Lance is the guy.
Well, here's the thing. So Trey Lance breaks his foot, and Brock Purdy essentially, although doesn't, have Tommy John surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is more catastrophic to your
Purdy.
quarterback play?
And he has a weak arm to begin with.
And the lower body is so important. I'm not taking that away, but Brock Purdy's injury is more severe than Trey Lance's is. Yes, he had the internal brace. Yes, he can come back and be the exact same guy. So can Trey Lance. And I think Trey Lance is going to have the leg up being in the OTAs, being in the training camp almost the entirety of the time. He's fully cleared now. Like, Trey Lance is going to have the opportunity to win that starting quarterback job. Like, I was at camp last year for a handful of days. I was in the press conferences. Like, Trey Lance, yes, was inaccurate a lot. And he made a lot of people go, I don't know about this kid. But he made a lot of wow plays where you said, oh, this kid's special. And in the press conferences, he never felt like he was overwhelmed. Or even though it was a lot of information being thrown at him, whether it was, the media being like, we're unsure about this kid, or Kyle Shanahan being, hey, we like this kid, and then Garoppolo playing catch on the side field. He never felt like it was too much for him. The way he talked, the way he held himself, the way he was poised, talking to the media, there was a calmness about him. And I know the Bears game was a bad taste. I didn't like it. They should have won that game. I get it. But I truly believe had he been healthy against Seattle, that game goes the exact same way. They win that game handily. I don't know if they win all these games like Purdy did, but I do think we would have seen the building blocks there. And I don't know about you, and I would think you're on the same page as me. You don't move off rare, potentially elite talent because, his draft stock or his trade value is falling. He's not a bust. He hasn't been able to show what he can truly be yet.
There's not enough film on him or tape on him to even call him a bust, just like you can't call Purdy the second coming. He's essentially played 5, 7, 8 games. Like, you can't say in one hand, Purdy's the second coming. We got to keep him. He's going to win us a championship. And then with just as little of, to go on with Trey Lance, say he's a bust. You can't, it doesn't work that way. So it's funny you say training camp. I saw a clip last year with Bonte and Shasky. They were like two girls going to teenage girls going to an NSYNC concert. Yeah. Oh my gosh. They were like, oh, like, how Shasky is. His excitement is palatable. It's like great. I have him on and I just we all mute our mics and he just goes. He's amazing. Yeah, watching those two last year in training camp was something that I won't soon forget because they were super excited. 49ers pick up Brandon Ayuk's fifth-year option, not Kinlaw's. Not surprised. I'm not surprised.
It's a given. Kinlaw's always hurt, and Ayuk's a pretty good receiver that could be receiver one. I think it means Debo's days might be over with, or that contract gets reworked. I think they obviously want to keep both of them. The question is, can you afford to?
Yep.
And we know Prague Marate is a wizard at structuring contracts. They can get it done. This team is gonna have to have some hard goodbyes at a certain point. They've had some.
Yep.
DeForest Buckner. People didn't like Garoppolo a lot. Still, quarterback for a while here, won a lot of games. Goodbye. McGlinchey, right tackle, first round pick. People didn't love him. Goodbye. Like, you have to make some sacrifices, and they've done that. Jimmy Ward now in Houston. Like, they have made tough decisions before. They'll make them again. That being said, I think they want an offense that has Debo and Ayuk for the next 5-7 years in it.
Whether that can happen is to be determined.
Right.
Nick Bosa's contract, I don't see him getting his contract done until either into the first day of camp or right before. Do you see
Right.
anything different? That's just how it works. People are like, "Oh, Nick Bosa's. Why isn't it done yet?" It's never done this early. Are you kidding me? That's the whole point of it being a contract negotiations.
What usually happens is they get into camp and they go, okay, like let's have a face-to-face meeting. Bring your agent in here. We'll discuss money. And that's what happens. And they do, and they get it hammered out in like a day and a half because they go, okay, well, you're going to miss training camp. You're going to miss whatever you're in, OTAs, whatever it is. And you're going to miss time with the team because do you want to hold out? That's not who you are. That's not who Nick Bosa is. Like, this thing's going to get done. And I think when it get done, to me, follow the money trail, because you get into OTAs, you get into training camp, some guy goes down. We got to bring in a seventh cornerback. We got to bring in a 10th offensive lineman to fill a need for the summer. And what happens is you extend Nick Bosa, get it done. You free up, $2-3 more million. It gives you a little more depth behind you in case someone gets hurt. And that kind of, like, San Francisco goes into the year with around $4 million in the books, waiting in case something happens.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably going to happen again this year. And a lot of that's going to be because Nick Bosa's contract gets reworked and of course, extended.
A lot of people call, when you say operating costs, you have, like, every year there's injuries that happen, right? So
Right.
every time you bring in a guy off the street, you have to sign into a contract, and it, little by
Right.
little, it dwindles your capital, your money down. They can go into the season with, I mean, they still got to pay for their draft class,
Right.
but yeah, the Niners essentially leave themselves open to always either making moves or making the move, the Christian McCaffrey midseason move to put them over the top. I don't know what that would be this year, if it would be an offensive tackle or an edge rusher. I wish they would do that before. I feel like the Niners are as complete of a team as they've been. Like I said, and I agree with you, we need another guy on the other side. I love all the guys we have, but I feel like a lot of them are just depth guys. That's what they are. That's great and everything on a team that ain't expected to compete for a championship. But granted, we have Hargrave now, and we have Eric Armstead, but I would love to see them make that one move. So yeah, I can't wait. Anybody who thinks Nick Bosa is going anywhere is here on drugs, because this man's here to stay. He said he would take less. That's not happening. His agent's going to get him as much money. He's going to be the highest paid, or close to the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. So
He knows
don't.
his worth.
Yeah.
By far. I don't know if you watch Chris Long's podcast. They had Mike Mayock on there, a former GM of the
Okay.
Raiders, obviously failed GM of the Raiders.
Yep.
But they were behind San Francisco, picking I think 4 at that point in 2019, or excuse me, 2018. And Nick Bosa had his top 30 visit with San Francisco and the Cardinals and the Raiders.
I
And
know what you're gonna
Mayock
say.
says, like, Nick Bosa was like, hey, like, you're going to go number 1, number 2. Like, we can't get up there for you. And Bosa was like, well, you better trade up then. Like Nick Bosa knows his worth. Like, he told the Cardinals, don't take that small quarterback. Like, you're going to regret it. And
Oh
I
boy,
think
did
they
they ever.
have. Like,
Yeah.
and I think Kyler Murray is a good talent. There's some issues, but it's like, look, like Nick Bosa is the best player in that draft, the reigning defensive player of the year. He knows he's worth the highest contract for a defensive player ever. Like, we're
He's on the
talking
pace to be a good
ever.
Hall of Fame player if
Yeah,
he's healthy. Dude had 18 and a half sacks last year. 18. That's
right.
insane. That's not regular. Most good pass rushers, if they get 12 sacks a year, is considered a good season. This dude had almost 20, and he was the only guy at times getting into the quarterback. It was
And he
Nick
missed a game.
Bosa. Right. You put him and somebody else has to take double teams, and he has a single. He's singled up against like either rookie or young offensive tackles. That dude's going to eat. Again, health is the Niners' biggest enemy to me is unresolved quarterback issues and health. That's always their problem. The Niners just every year there's always a catastrophic injury or two or three that you say, man, if so and so just would have been healthy, we would have did this. They have to have a year. It's got to run out. Like last year, they were relatively healthy, but the Emmanuel Mosley, being down for a while, I think it hurt them until the playoffs. And I think Demo stepped up and played well. But man, it's going to be fun, man. I literally can't wait. My buddy Charles, I have a couple of gaming buddies in here that like to pick on me because they know how much I hate the Chiefs. He says, "How about Casey Aaron? Love you. Thank you, Charles, for the $2 super. I appreciate it." Hey, listen, guys, I had fun. I'm going to let Sterling run. In case people don't know what you do, if you would like to tell them, because somebody was like, where does he come from? How does he work with Larry? Let them know what your 9 to 5 is, because I think it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So currently, I work at 95.7 The Game as a producer, board op. I've hosted Niners post games before there,
That's
but
awesome.
also my main job is the Golden State Warriors network coordinator. As you can see, my gold blooded shirt currently. Um,
Nice.
we need them to win in the NBA Finals and be back in the NBA Finals this year. So go Dubs. But that's my job. I'm basically Tim Roy, Tom Tolbert, Jim Barnett, RC Davis over there. Like, those are my guys. I work with them every single day, every single game day, getting sound, making sure the radio voice of the Golden State Warriors is on the air and sounds great. That's my job. And we do it every single game. I've been doing it for 3 years now. And we've got an NBA championship out of it and looking for a second one currently.
I really was. I was thinking of a name if me and you ever could get a weekly show, and I was thinking of something to do with Sterling takes or something that had to do with diamonds. Because the Sterling.
Right.
No, it'd be
Right.
Sterling Silver, right? So I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
We'd have to have something like that. But yeah, dude, I remember seeing you on, and then and I started reading your bio on Twitter. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's like. And you told me, you're like, I can stream, but it only has to be this day and this day. Because
Right.
other than that,
Right.
I'm working the boards at 95.7 The Game. I have no chance to be free. So I reached out to you. This is, I think, the third time. I think you've had the best connection out
Yeah,
of the
this
three
is, yeah.
times. It took us a
Yes.
while to get on because this computer was being a jerk. But I appreciate it, man. I want to do this
Yeah.
again for sure. We have schedule release coming out. Maybe I hit you up in another couple of weeks and we can fantasize of the 49ers going undefeated and not losing one game, which won't happen. But, we tend to do that as 49er fans. We're like, we're not losing that game, and then we lose it. But
Yeah.
everybody in the chat, real thanks real quick to Ramon, Ramon, Raymond and Emily Jones for the $2 super. He says he thinks he enjoyed us. He subbed to the channel. He's like, I enjoy you guys, our balanced take on the quarterback position. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Sterling for being here. So everybody have a great rest of your night. Take care. If you're a Warriors fan, I hope your team wins. If you're a Lakers fan, I hope your team wins. I don't go for basketball. So, but go Niners. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next time.